They carried out their lawful duties to keep Americans safe in the threat of criminal, illegal aliens in this country.
And this is the part where she asks us to ignore the shifting goalposts that have been happening for the last year. If you're MAGA, it's already done. We were told very clearly that ICE was only going to be going after violent criminals, gang members like MS-13. Remember all the rhetoric about MS-13? Or cartel members? I remember that too. People who, what I understood was people who posed an actual threat to us. That was the promise. But then the definition of criminal magically expanded. All of a sudden, it's not violent. It's anybody who's here illegally, anybody who is driving without a license, anybody who's missed a court date, things that have absolutely nothing to do with violence. And here's the thing that they won't say out loud. And every time I corner a MAGA person and ask them about it, they pivot, they laugh, they start insulting me. If our government sent agents to help people get legal instead of hunting them, we would have more workers, more taxpayers, more people contributing to our communities. People don't run from help. They don't try to escape help. They escape fear. If the mission was to support instead of force, nobody would be trying to distract ICE. Nobody would have been thrown to the ground. Nobody would have run away from ICE officers in their car. And Alex and Renee would still be here. So when she says we're just keeping Americans safe, what she's really saying is ignore your eyes and trust my narrative. Trust my words and not the footage that you're actually watching.
At 9:05 a.m. Central Time, the Department of Homeland Security law enforcement officials and officers were conducting targeted operations in Minneapolis against an illegal alien whose criminal history included domestic assault with intentionally inflicting bodily harm, disorderly conduct, and driving without a valid license.
Let's start with something super basic here. Local law enforcement already deals with disorderly conduct, domestic disputes, and driving without a license. So these are not tactical DHS problems. And I can only speak for myself, but I would rather see a guilty man walk free than see an innocent man gunned down in the streets. Not to mention, none of those charges that she listed off there explains why Alex found himself face down, surrounded by agents, and then being pew-pewed in the back by said agents. If someone in my community commits a domestic assault, and it happens all the time, from what I understand, it's the most common thing the police deal with. The sheriff goes to the house and deals with it. If someone is driving without a license, the local officers write a citation. What we don't do is send in federal agents in tactical gear with rifles to deal with traffic violations. Because when you escalate everyday issues into federal raids, the odds of someone being hurt, someone innocent, the odds go up. And that's exactly what happened here.
An individual approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. The officers attempted to disarm this individual, but the armed suspect reacted violently.
I don't know what you saw, but what I saw was a man coming to the defense of an innocent civilian who was being bullied by a man in tactical gear with a firearm. And then holding up his hand as if to say, I am not a threat. I don't have any weapons. Please don't harm us. And that was met with being drenched by mace and then being swarmed by agents. She is describing a threat that didn't exist, and the footage proves it. And nothing that that man did justified what happened next. What I'm seeing in this footage, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you're law enforcement, please step in and tell me what you see. But what I see here are people who are undertrained and reacting chaotically to a situation they created. In fact, it seemed like Alex was the one who was trying to de-escalate by putting his hands up like that. And if there's any trained officers, law enforcement out there, please, I genuinely want your opinion without bias. There is no moment in that footage where he approaches agents with a gun. There is no moment in that footage where he reacts violently, but there is a moment where he is pinned helplessly and gets pew-pewed in the back.
Fearing for his life and for the lives of his fellow officers around him, an agent fired defensive shots.
If this was truly a moment where agents were in fear for their lives, why did only one agent draw their weapon? There were multiple agents on the scene. They were surrounding the guy. They didn't run for cover. They didn't draw their weapons. They're not behaving like they're in danger. So why was there only one agent who was apparently afraid? Fear is not a free pass to unalive somebody, especially when all the other agents on your team aren't reacting in the same way. This is another moment where she asks us to ignore what we see with our eyes because only one agent overreacted there. Be excellent to each other and remember that accountability starts with people who refuse to be gaslit.